General Maya Chen stood before the massive viewing window of Titan Station, her dark eyes fixed on the mysterious shape emerging from Saturn's orange haze. After 15 years of secrecy, Project Orpheus was finally complete. The ESS Defiant didn't gleam like the polished warships of the galactic Concordat. It absorbed light, a shadow given form. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Behind her, dozens of technicians and officers worked at their stations, monitoring the final systems check of humanity's greatest gamble. Dr. Ilara Patel, chief engineer of the project, approached with a holographic display floating before her. "The quantum vacuum drive is stable, General. The Faraday mesh is maintaining cohesion at 99.8% efficiency." She paused, allowing herself a small smile. "They won't see us coming." The Defiant represented everything the galactic Concordat had dismissed about humanity: their stubborn refusal to follow conventional wisdom, their insistence on exploring discarded theories, their ability to turn apparent weaknesses into strengths. While other species had pursued ever more powerful energy weapons and shields, humanity had taken a different path. "Show me the core," Maya ordered. The holographic display shifted, revealing the beating heart of the vessel. Where other ships carried antimatter reactors or zero-point energy cores, the Defiant housed something far more primitive and far more dangerous. "The gravitational singularity is perfectly contained," Ilara reported. "The exotic matter ring is maintaining stability. We've essentially created a portable black hole, controlled by principles the Concordat considers impossible." Maya nodded. The aliens had laughed when they discovered humans still studied classical physics alongside quantum mechanics. They couldn't understand why humanity refused to abandon obsolete technologies. But humans had learned long ago that sometimes the old ways held secrets the new had forgotten. An alert chimed through the command center. "General," Lieutenant James Okoro called from his communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Luna Command. It's coded Omega Black." Maya's heart rate quickened. Omega Black meant only one thing: first contact had gone catastrophically wrong. "Put it through, encrypted channel." Admiral Sarah Hassan's face appeared on the main screen, her features tight with concern. "Maya, the Concordat was a lie. We've confirmed multiple attacks on our outer colonies. Their ships appeared out of nowhere, some kind of advanced cloaking technology we've never seen before. New Eden has already fallen. We've lost contact with Proxima Station." Maya exchanged glances with Ilara. "How much time do we have?" "Their main fleet will reach Saturn space in 72 hours. The Colonial Defense Force is engaging their advanced elements, but—" Sarah's image flickered. "Their technology is centuries ahead of what they showed us. It was all a deception, letting us think they were merely cautious allies while they study our weaknesses." "They didn't study all of them," Maya replied. "The Defiant is ready. Not pretty, not polished, but ready to fight." Sarah's relief was visible even through the static of the quantum transmission. "Can it stand against their fleet? Our conventional ships are being torn apart." Maya turned back to the viewport, watching as maintenance drones detached from the Defiant's dark hull. "They expect energy weapons, shields, and conventional tactics. The Defiant doesn't have any of those things. What it does have is a black hole for a heart, a hull that absorbs both energy and light, and weapons that break the laws of physics as they understand them. And a human crew," Ilara added quietly. "Don't forget that part." Maya allowed herself a grim smile. "Begin evacuation of all non-essential personnel from Titan Station. Initiate emergency crew boarding protocols. We launch in 6 hours." As the command center erupted into controlled chaos, Maya kept her eyes on the Defiant. The aliens thought they knew humanity's capabilities, thought they had calculated every variable. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed humans would follow the same technological path as every other spacefaring race. They hadn't realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology. It was their stubborn refusal to accept limitations. "They think they're hunting sheep," Maya murmured. "They're about to learn they've stumbled into a wolf's den." The Defiant systems continued their power-up sequence, each one representing a theory the Concordat had dismissed, a path they had abandoned. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn why humans had never stopped asking what if, why they had never stopped exploring the roads not taken. And perhaps most importantly, they would learn why every human child was still taught the ancient art of thinking outside the box. The Concordat battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their crystalline ships catching Saturn's distant light like faceted jewels. Admiral Vexterra watched the tactical display with all 4 of her primary eyes, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. The human defense fleet protecting their gas mining operations had already scattered, their primitive vessels no match for Concordat technology. "Curious," her senior tactical officer, Sub-Commander Zarl, noted. "The humans are not behaving according to our simulations. Their ships are retreating behind Saturn's rings rather than attempting to engage. They recognize the futility of resistance," Vexterra replied. "Begin deployment of the harvester ships. The humans' gas mining operations will serve as excellent staging grounds for our next phase of conquest." The massive harvester vessels, each the size of a small moon, began their lumbering advance towards Saturn's atmosphere. None of the Concordat officers paid attention to the strange dark spot in their sensor readings, dismissing it as another quirk of the gas giant's complex magnetic field. Aboard the USS Defiant, General Maya Chen watched the alien fleet's approach through sensors that operated on principles the Concordat had never conceived. "They still haven't detected us," she noted. Dr. Patel, status of the quantum vacuum drive. "Operating beyond specifications," Ilara reported from her station. "The gravitational lensing is perfect. We're literally bending light around us. Not with technology, but with gravity itself." Maya nodded. The Concordat relied on complex energy fields and quantum manipulations for their cloaking technology. The Defiant simply created a localized gravity, well, so intense that light curved around it. A technique as crude as it was brilliant. "All hands, battle stations," Maya commanded. "Prepare for Operation Newton's Revenge." Throughout the massive ship, crews rushed to their positions. Unlike the automated systems of Concordat vessels, the Defiant required human operators for its most crucial functions. The aliens saw this as a weakness. They were about to learn otherwise. "Target the lead harvester," Maya ordered. "Initiate gravitational spike on my mark." The Defiant's main weapon was, like everything else about the ship, deceptively simple in principle. It didn't fire energy beams or plasma bolts. Instead, it created a focused point of intense gravitational force, essentially hitting the target with a microscopic black hole that existed for a fraction of a second. 3 minutes until they're in optimum range, Lieutenant Okoro reported. "The Concordat fleet is beginning to deploy their energy screens." Maya smiled grimly. "They're preparing for the wrong kind of attack." Execute primary sequence. The Defiant's quantum vacuum drive pulsed, using the ship's artificial gravity well to accelerate it to relativistic speeds almost instantly. To the Concordat fleet, it appeared as if a piece of shadow had suddenly materialized in their midst. "What is that?" Vexterra demanded, all 4 eyes widening as alarms blared across her command deck. "How did they?" She never finished her question. The Defiant's gravitational spike weapon fired, sending a pinpoint singularity through the lead harvester's shields, as if they didn't exist. For a brief moment, a small portion of the massive ship experienced gravity millions of times stronger than a neutron star. The effect was catastrophic. The harvester ship literally folded in on itself at the point of impact, its supposedly invincible hull crumpling like paper in a vacuum. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure as its power cores destabilized. "Impossible," Zar-Ul shouted. "Their weapons. They're not registering on any of our defensive systems." "Break formation," Vexterra commanded, but it was too late. The Defiant was already moving again, its black hole heart allowing it to manipulate gravity and space in ways the Concordat had never imagined possible. Maya watched as the alien fleet scrambled to respond, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos. They expected energy weapons, she noted. They prepared for technologies they understood. Launch gravity mines. Hundreds of small objects deployed from the Defiant's hull, each one a simplified version of the ship's core technology. As they spread through the battlefield, they began creating a web of overlapping gravitational distortions. Their targeting systems are failing, Ilara reported with satisfaction. They can't get a weapons lock through the gravity fluctuations. The Concordat fleet's energy weapons fired wildly, their beams bending and twisting in impossible ways as they passed through the distorted space. Their shields, designed to resist energy and kinetic impacts, proved useless against localized changes in the fabric of space-time itself. Send the message, Maya ordered. Let them understand exactly what they're facing. On every Concordat ship, displays flickered to life with a simple text message in their own language. You thought we were primitive because we never stopped studying the old ways. You're about to learn why we kept them. The battle for Saturn space had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. The Grand Concordat Assembly had never convened so quickly in its 1,000-year history. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations gathered in their crystalline chamber, their agitation evident in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses, their various species expressions of extreme distress. High Speaker Ixel, their most decorated military theorist, displayed the battle footage from Saturn space. The assembled delegates watched in horrified silence as the human vessel defied every known law of physics to destroy a harvester ship worth more than most planetary economies. How is this possible? Demanded the Ziggurat's representative, their photoreceptors flashing in agitation. Their technological level was assessed at barely Category 3. They shouldn't even have unified planetary defense systems, let alone this. We made a fundamental error, Ixel admitted, their tentacles rippling with embarrassment. We assumed technological progress followed a linear path. The humans took a different approach. Meanwhile, aboard the ESS Defiant, General Maya Chen was receiving very different reports. Lieutenant Okoro's hands flew over his console as data streamed in from across human space. The Concordat is pulling back everywhere, General. They're abandoning their forward positions so fast, they're leaving equipment behind. They're scared, Dr. Patil observed from her engineering station, where she was analyzing the battle data. The gravitational spike weapon performed beyond our most optimistic projections. Their shields might as well have been tissue paper. Maya studied the tactical display, her expression thoughtful. They're regrouping, not retreating. Show me the quantum wake analysis. The display shifted, revealing patterns of disturbed spacetime left by the Concordat ships faster than light drives. Dr. Patil leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. These signatures, they're different from their previous movements. Deeper, more energetic. They're bringing in their real fleet, Maya concluded. What we fought was their expeditionary force. Now we'll face their actual military. The Defiant's bridge crew fell silent, the weight of that reality settling over them. They had bloodied the Concordat's nose, but the real fight was just beginning. General, a new voice called. Commander Sarah Roberts, head of the Defiant's Research Division, rushed onto the bridge. We've finished analyzing the debris from the harvester ship. You need to see this immediately. The holographic display shifted again, showing microscopic structures within the alien vessel's remains. Their entire technological base, Sarah explained, is built on manipulating quantum fields through crystalline matrices. It's elegant, advanced, and has a critical weakness we never even considered exploiting. Maya leaned forward, suddenly intensely interested. Explain. Their crystals resonate at very specific frequencies, Sarah continued, her excitement building. We thought this was just an aesthetic choice, but it's the foundation of all their technology. Their FTL drives, their weapons, their shields, everything depends on maintaining these quantum resonances. Dr. Patel's eyes widened as she understood the implications. And our gravitational distortions. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. We weren't just disrupting their spacetime. We were interfering with the fundamental operation of their technology. Every gravitational spike we fired doesn't just hit them with intense gravity. It sends harmonic disruptions through their entire crystalline framework. Maya turned to Dr. Patel. Can we weaponize this? Create focused disruptions specifically tuned to their technological frequency. Better than that, Ilara replied, already running calculations. We can modify our gravity mines to create resonant fields that will cascade through their entire formation. Their own ships will amplify the effect. In the Concordat assembly, the debate had turned desperate. The Meridian representative, their metallic scales reflecting the chamber's light, raised their voice above the chaos. We must strike now with everything we have, before they can develop these weapons further. Agreed, Ixel declared. We will deploy the Grand Fleet. 10,000 ships, our finest warriors, our most advanced technology. We will show these humans the true might of the Concordat. They had no way of knowing that aboard the Defiant, humanity was already preparing a welcome for their Grand Armada. Maya watched as her crew worked, implementing Sarah's discoveries with the speed and creativity that had always been humanity's greatest strength. They think this victory was our ultimate achievement, she mused. They don't understand that humans never stop innovating, never stop improving. Every challenge makes us stronger. Dr. Patel looked up from her work. The gravity mines will be ready in 6 hours. We're calling them resonance disruptors now. The entire Concordat fleet will be one big self-destructing tuning fork. Maya nodded, a grim smile playing across her features. Send word to Earth. Tell them to begin mass production immediately, and notify all human ships in the sector. The real battle is about to begin. And this time, we're not just defending. We're taking the fight to them. The stars seemed to shimmer, as if they too were anticipating the clash to come. Humanity had revealed their first card, but they had many more yet to play. The Concordat was about to learn why every human child was taught that the best solutions often came from thinking about old problems in new ways. The void between Jupiter and Saturn erupted with light as 10,000 Concordat warships tore through the fabric of spacetime. Their crystalline hulls formed perfect geometric patterns, a testament to their technological sophistication and rigid military doctrine. At their center, the Concordat flagship Crystal Ascendant dwarfed its escorts, its 100-kilometer-length broadcasting power and authority. Supreme Commander Ixel stood on their command deck, all sensory appendages extended to absorb the magnificent sight. Let the humans witness true power, they declared. Signal the fleet, begin the advance. Aboard the ESS Defiant, General Maya Chen watched the enemy armada approach. Unlike the Concordat's gleaming display of force, the human response seemed pathetically small. The Defiant hung in space alongside just 50 other ships, vessels pulled from mining operations, retrofitted cargo haulers, and hastily upgraded defensive platforms. They're launching long-range scans, Lieutenant Okoro reported. Their energy signatures are massive. They're not even trying to hide their capabilities anymore. Why should they? Dr. Patel remarked from her engineering station. They outnumber us 200 to 1, with technology they believe we can't possibly match. Pride comes before the fall. Maya nodded. Status of Operation Echo. All ships report ready, Commander Roberts responded. The resonance disruptors are synchronized. We've mapped the harmonic frequencies of every major Concordat ship class. The human fleet had spent the last 6 hours seeding the space between Jupiter and Saturn with thousands of modified gravity mines. Each one was tuned to exploit the crystalline weakness they'd discovered, creating overlapping fields of destructive resonance. They're entering weapons range, Okoro announced. Their forward elements are charging weapon systems. Maya took a deep breath. Begin broadcast. Across the Concordat fleet, communication systems crackled to life with an unexpected transmission. It wasn't the surrender plea they'd anticipated. Instead, they heard music, a simple human melody that seemed to ripple through space itself. "What trickery is this?" Ixel demanded as their sensors registered strange fluctuations in their ship's crystalline matrices. The music grew more complex, adding layers of harmony and counterpoint. With each new note, the gravitational mines activated in sequence, their fields pulsing in perfect synchronization with the broadcast. "They're using sound," Ixel's secondary commander scoffed. "In space, not sound," Maya explained to her crew as they watched the effects unfold. "Resonance. Every frequency in this composition matches a natural harmonic in their crystalline technology. Dr. Patel, you may begin the concert." The Defiant's quantum vacuum drive engaged, but instead of moving the ship, it began generating precisely controlled gravitational waves. These ripples in space-time carried the musical patterns directly into the crystalline structure of the Concordat fleet. The effect was devastating. Starting with the smaller escort ships, crystal began to fracture. The breaks weren't random. They followed the music's rhythm, spreading through the fleet like a synchronized dance of destruction. Ships began to shatter, their own technology amplifying and transmitting the resonant frequencies to their neighbors. "Impossible!" Ixel roared as damage reports flooded in. All ships opened fire, but their weapons, based on the same crystalline technology, were equally affected. Energy beams diffracted wildly, their focusing crystals compromised by the harmonic assault. Some ships simply fell silent, their systems locked in destructive feedback loops. "They're breaking formation," Okoro reported with barely contained excitement. "Their fleet coordination is completely disrupted." Maya watched as the mighty Concordat armada began to fail, not from conventional weapons, but from the elegant exploitation of their own technological foundation. Launch Phase 2. The 50 human ships surged forward, each one now equipped with scaled-down versions of the Defiant's gravity spike weapon. They didn't need to match the Concordat ship for ship. They just needed to target key vessels whose destruction would cascade through the enemy fleet's crystalline network. From his flagship, Ixel watched in horror as their carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. The humans weren't fighting according to any known doctrine. They had turned the very laws of physics into weapons, using principles so basic that the Concordat had dismissed them as irrelevant millennia ago. "Signal the retreat," Ixel ordered, their voice heavy with disbelief. "We must warn the assembly. These humans, they're not primitives. They're something else entirely." But the retreat order came too late. The resonance had reached the crystal ascendant itself. Fractures appeared in its magnificent hull, spreading like spider webs across its surface. The flagship's power core, contained within a perfect crystalline sphere, began to vibrate at frequencies it was never designed to withstand. Maya's voice cut through the chaos of battle, broadcasting on all frequencies. "You assumed that because we hadn't discovered your path to the stars, we were inferior. You never asked why we kept studying the old ways, why we never abandoned physical sciences for purely quantum technologies. Today, you learn the answer. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful." The crystal ascendant's core finally shattered, the release of energy turning the massive flagship into a brief, brilliant new star. Throughout human space, the message spread. The Concordat's grand fleet, pride of 17 alien civilizations, had been defeated not by superior technology, but by humanity's unique ability to find strength in what others considered obsolete. 1 month after the Battle of the Resonant Fields, as humans had begun calling it, the Grand Concordat Assembly Chamber looked very different. Gone were the towering crystalline structures that had once dominated the space. Instead, simple metal and composite materials formed the walls and seating, a silent acknowledgement of how completely humanity had changed their understanding of technological vulnerability. General Maya Chen stood before the assembled representatives, the first human ever invited to address the full assembly. Behind her, a holographic display showed the ESS Defiant, now recognized across the galaxy not as a primitive vessel, but as the harbinger of a new era in space warfare. "The terms of peace are simple," Maya stated, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "The Concordat will recognize humanity's independence and our right to develop technology along our own path. In return, we'll share our understanding of gravitational mechanics and help you develop hybrid technologies that don't rely solely on crystalline matrices." High Speaker Ixel, now serving in a civilian role after the military restructuring, leaned forward. "And what guarantee do we have that humanity won't use this knowledge against us in the future?" Maya smiled. "The same guarantee you have that we won't use our existing weapons. Trust built on mutual respect. We never wanted war. We simply wanted the freedom to explore our own solutions to universal problems." In orbit above the assembly world, Dr. Patel and Commander Roberts were conducting a very different kind of meeting. They stood in a laboratory filled with alien scientists, explaining the principles behind human technology that the Concordat had once dismissed as primitive. The key was never abandoning the fundamentals, Ilara explained, gesturing to a simple gravity well demonstration. "You focused so much on quantum manipulation that you forgot gravity itself could be a tool. We kept asking the basic questions. What if we could control gravity directly? What if we could use space-time itself as a weapon?" A young Meridian scientist raised their manipulator appendage. "But surely quantum technology is more advanced." "More elegant?" Sarah smiled. "More advanced doesn't always mean better. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most elegant. Watch this." She activated a small device that combined both human and Concordat principles. The resulting display showed energy patterns the aliens had never thought possible. Back in the assembly chamber, Maya was concluding her address. "The future we envision isn't one where humanity stands above or below other species. It's one where each civilization contributes its unique perspective to solving the universe's mysteries." "And what of the Defiant?" asked the Zigzerix representative. "Will you share its secrets?" "The Defiant isn't special because of its technology," Maya replied. "It's special because it represents humanity's greatest strength, our ability to look at old problems in new ways. That's what we really offer the galaxy, not better weapons or shields, but a different way of thinking." As if to emphasize her point, a group of human and alien engineers were at that moment installing the first hybrid power core in a Concordat vessel. It combined crystalline quantum technology with human-designed gravitational controllers, creating something entirely new. "The real victory," Maya continued, "wasn't defeating your fleet. It was proving that progress doesn't follow a single path. There are always alternatives, always new ways to approach old challenges. That's humanity's gift to the galaxy. The reminder that sometimes you have to look backward to move forward." The assembly chamber erupted in the various sounds of agreement from 17 different species. The galaxy was changing. The rigid hierarchies of technological advancement were giving way to a new understanding that innovation could come from unexpected directions. Aboard the Defiant, now in orbit above the assembly world, Lieutenant Okoro received the final signatures on the peace treaty. He turned to the bridge crew with a broad smile. "It's official. We're now recognized as full members of the galactic community, on our own terms." Dr. Patel looked up from where she was teaching a group of alien engineers about gravitational mechanics. "You know what's funny? They thought they were so far ahead of us, but they never asked why we kept studying things they considered obsolete. They never wondered if maybe we saw something they had missed. That's always been humanity's true strength," Maya said as she returned to her ship. "Not our technology, not our weapons, but our refusal to accept that there's only one right way to solve a problem. We keep asking questions, keep exploring paths others have abandoned." As the Defiant prepared to return to Earth, Maya stood at her familiar spot on the bridge, watching the assembly world shrink behind them. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by following the established path, but by blazing their own trail. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes the best way forward was to remember what others had forgotten. The ship's quantum vacuum drive engaged, its artificial gravity well-bending spacetime in ways that still amazed their new allies. As they accelerated toward home, Maya reflected that this was just the beginning. Humanity had much more to teach the galaxy, and even more to learn. The future would be built not on the supremacy of any one approach, but on the endless possibilities that arose when different perspectives came together to explore the unknown.
The silent arrival, the Kepler Prime system, had known peace for 50 years. 50 years since the last human transmission faded into cosmic silence. 50 years since the blue marble called Earth had gone dark, leaving behind only the memory of a species that had once dared to reach for the stars. Admiral Kekstar stood on the observation deck of the Syndicate flagship Eternal Dominion, his 4 arms clasped behind his chitinous back. The massive creature's compound eyes reflected the light of Kepler Prime's twin suns as he gazed out at the patrol formations. Today marked the anniversary of humanity's official extinction declaration. The irony wasn't lost on him that they were celebrating the disappearance of the very species that had once challenged their authority. "Admiral," came the voice of his communications officer, Lieutenant Velta. "The memorial broadcast is ready for your approval." Kekstar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. The Zephyrians had ruled this sector for 3 centuries, and the removal of humanity from the equation had made their dominance absolute. No more unpredictable primates with their chaotic innovations and stubborn refusal to submit to proper galactic order. "Proceed with the broadcast," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never been truly challenged. "Let all systems remember that chaos has no place among the civilized." The memorial message began transmitting across the Syndicate's network. A carefully crafted narrative about humanity's self-destruction through warfare and environmental collapse. It was simpler than the truth, cleaner than admitting they had simply chosen to ignore Earth's final distress calls. That's when reality shattered. The first sign wasn't visible to the naked eye. Deep within the Eternal Dominion's sensor array, quantum detectors began screaming warnings that made no sense. Space itself seemed to be ... folding. The readings suggested something massive was about to emerge, from a form of faster-than-light travel that shouldn't exist. "Sir," the sensor operator's voice cracked across the bridge. "We're detecting an incoming vessel. Size ... sir. The readings can't be correct." Kekstar's attention snapped to the tactical display. The holographic representation showed a contact that dwarfed everything in the system, including his own flagship. But that was impossible. No species in the galaxy possessed the technology to build something that large, let alone move it through space. "Confirm sensor accuracy," he barked, his earlier confidence evaporating like morning mist. Before anyone could respond, space itself seemed to tear open. A cascade of exotic energy painted the void in colors that had no names, and through this impossible gateway, something emerged that redefined the word massive. The ship was a leviathan of dark metal and flowing energy, its hull stretching over 15 kilometers from bow to stern. Its design was unlike anything in the Syndicate's databases, all flowing curves and integrated systems that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Weapon systems that looked more like works of art than instruments of war dotted its surface, each one larger than most frigates. But it was the familiar yet evolved design language that sent ice through Kekstar's multiple hearts. The aggressive angles, the practical aesthetics, the way every line suggested both beauty and lethality. He had seen this design philosophy before, 50 years ago. in the crude vessels that had once buzzed around Earth's system like angry wasps, humans. He whispered, the word falling from his mandibles like a prayer to forgotten gods. The bridge erupted in chaos. Officers shouted confirmations and denials in equal measure. How could humans have built something like this? They were supposed to be extinct. The technology required for such a vessel was beyond anything the Syndicate possessed, and they were the most advanced civilization in known space. On the view screen, the massive ship hung in space like a dark star, its presence warping the very fabric of local space-time. Energy readings from its hull suggested power generation capabilities that exceeded most planetary grids. This wasn't just a ship. It was a mobile civilization, a floating testament to technological advancement that made the Syndicate's finest vessels look like ancient relics. All stations, battle alert, Kextar commanded, his voice steadier than he felt. Raise shields and prepare defensive formations. Contact the Council immediately. The response came swiftly. The human vessel, if that's what it truly was, began transmitting on frequencies that the Syndicate had thought secure. But more disturbing than the breach of their communications was the calm, measured voice that filled the bridge. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Federation vessel Prometheus. You are Admiral Kextar of the Kepler Syndicate, currently commanding the Eternal Dominion. We need to talk. The precision of the information sent another chill through the Admiral's exoskeleton. How did they know his name? How did they know his ship's designation? The humans had been silent for 50 years, yet they spoke as if they had been watching, waiting, preparing. Unknown vessel, Kextar replied, struggling to maintain his composure. You are in violation of Syndicate space. Identify yourself, and state your intentions. The response came with what could only be described as amusement. Admiral, we both know exactly who we are. The question is, do you know who you've been dealing with? On the tactical display, the Prometheus began moving. Not with the crude thrust systems the Syndicate remembered from human vessels, but with a form of propulsion that seemed to bend space around it. The massive ship maneuvered with the grace of a dancer, its movements precise and deliberate. Fascinating, came another voice over the communication channel, this one belonging to someone with a pronounced accent. Their fleet composition hasn't changed much in 50 years. Still, the same tactical formations, still the same weaknesses. Captain, I'm detecting 37 vessels in the immediate area, all powered by fusion-based systems. Quaint. Kextar's confidence crumbled completely. The humans were analyzing his fleet like it was a museum exhibit. Who are you people? How did you... Where have you been? Captain Vasquez's voice carried a weight that spoke of years spent in the void between stars. We've been preparing, Admiral. 50 years ago, you decided humanity wasn't worth saving. You ignored our distress calls, blocked our refugee ships, and waited for us to burn ourselves out. You were so certain we'd destroy ourselves that you never considered we might evolve instead. The implications hit Kextar like a physical blow. The humans hadn't gone extinct. They had gone silent. They had disappeared not because they had failed, but because they had chosen to vanish. And now they were back, transformed into something that defied everything the Syndicate thought they knew about galactic power structures. That's impossible, he managed to say. Our monitoring stations would have detected any large-scale human activity. Your monitoring stations detected exactly what we wanted them to detect, came the reply, including the carefully crafted signals suggesting our extinction. Did you really think the species that split the atom and walked on their moon would simply roll over and die? The Prometheus continued its approach, and with each kilometer it closed, the sensor readings became more impossible. The ship wasn't just large, it was sophisticated beyond anything in the Syndicate's technological arsenal. Its hull seemed to be composed of materials that shouldn't exist. Its energy signatures suggested power systems that operated on principles the Syndicate's best scientists couldn't fathom. Dr. Chen, Captain Vasquez's voice continued, clearly addressing someone on her bridge. Please share our technological assessment with the Admiral. A new voice joined the conversation, crisp and analytical. Admiral Katzer. I'm Dr. Sarah Chun, Chief Science Officer of the Prometheus. Our scans indicate your vessels are powered by deuterium-tritium fusion reactors, approximately 1,500 years behind our current technology. Your weapon systems appear to be particle beam arrays, effective against targets of similar technological development. Your shields are electromagnetic in nature, designed to deflect conventional energy weapons. The clinical assessment continued, each word driving home the vast gulf that had opened between human and alien technology. Dr. Chen spoke of the Syndicate's most advanced systems, like a teacher explaining basic concepts to children. The point, Admiral, Captain Vasquez interrupted, is that we've had 50 years to advance without interference. 50 years to develop technologies you can't imagine. 50 years to build ships like the Prometheus, and she's not alone. As if summoned by her words, space began to distort in multiple locations around the system. The same impossible energy cascades that had heralded the Prometheus's arrival now bloomed across the void, each one birthing another massive human vessel. Within minutes, a fleet of Titan-class ships had materialized, each one a testament to human ingenuity and determination. How, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How did we survive? Captain Vasquez's voice carried a mixture of pride and pain. We learned, Admiral, we learned that the galaxy is hostile to those who can't defend themselves. We learned that waiting for help is a luxury that we can't afford. Most importantly, we learned that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our refusal to give up. The communication channel fell silent for a moment, and in that silence, Kexthar could hear the weight of 50 years of preparation, 50 years of growth, 50 years of planning for this moment. You made a mistake, Admiral, Captain Vasquez continued, her voice now carrying the authority of someone who held the fate of star systems in her hands. You assumed that because we were young and chaotic, we would always be weak. You forgot that chaos is just another word for unpredictability. And unpredictability, when channeled through determination and intelligence, becomes evolution. The Prometheus had reached optimal weapons range, though Kexthar suspected that for a vessel of its capabilities, optimal range probably encompassed the entire system. The massive ship hung in space like a dark judgment, its presence fundamentally altering the balance of power in the galaxy. We're not here for conquest, Admiral, Captain Vasquez said, her voice softening slightly. We're here for answers. We're here to understand why you abandoned us. We're here to determine whether the galaxy deserves our protection or our indifference. The weight of those words settled over the bridge like a shroud. The humans weren't supplicants seeking their place in galactic society. They were judges, returned from the void to evaluate those who had deemed them unworthy of existence. And if we fail your evaluation, Kexthar asked, though he dreaded the answer, then you'll learn what 50 years of human evolution can accomplish, came the reply. Dr. Chen, please demonstrate our defensive capabilities. Before anyone could react, the Prometheus simply disappeared, Not destroyed, not damaged, but gone as if it had never existed. The sensor arrays that had been tracking it showed empty space, yet the communication channel remained open. Optical camouflage, Dr. Chen's voice explained cheerfully. We've learned to bend light around our vessels. Your sensors are currently trying to track something that, for all practical purposes, doesn't exist in your perceptual reality. The Prometheus flickered back into visibility, its massive form reappearing exactly where it had been. The demonstration was brief but devastating. In its implications, if the humans could simply vanish at will, then every advantage the Syndicate thought they possessed was meaningless. 50 years, Admiral Captain Vasquez said, her voice carrying the finality of judgment. 50 years of silence while you celebrated our extinction. 50 years of preparation while you grew comfortable in your dominance. The question now is, what are you going to do with the knowledge that humanity has returned? The bridge of the Eternal Dominion had fallen completely, silent. Every officer, every crew member, every system seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for their admiral's response. The comfortable order of the galaxy had been shattered by the return of a species that had learned to thrive in the darkness between stars. Kexthar looked at the tactical display, at the impossible human fleet that had materialized from nowhere, and realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had just become obsolete. The humans weren't extinct. They weren't weak. They weren't the chaotic, primitive species he remembered. They were something far more dangerous. They were evolved, and they were waiting for his answer. Asterisk, the reckoning. The silence stretched across the bridge of the Eternal Dominion like a living thing, broken only by the soft hum of systems that suddenly seemed primitive and inadequate. Admiral Kexthar stared at the tactical display, his compound eyes reflecting the impossible formations of human vessels that had materialized from nothing. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering that made his flagship look like a child's toy. Admiral, Lieutenant. Veltar's voice cracked across the tension. The Council is demanding an immediate report. They single quote, re... They're requesting confirmation that the readings are in error. Kexthar's mandibles clicked involuntarily. The Kepler Syndicate Council, composed of the most advanced species in known space, was refusing to accept reality. How could he explain that the species they had written off as extinct had returned as technological gods? Tell the Council, he said slowly, that their assumptions about human extinction were premature. Before Veltar could respond, Captain Vasquez's voice filled the bridge again, carrying an undertone of amusement that made the Admiral's exoskeleton crawl. Admiral, we're detecting increased communications traffic between your vessel and the Council chambers. Please, don't let us interrupt your deliberations. We have waited 50 years for this conversation. We can wait a few more minutes. The casual dismissal stung worse than any threat. The humans were so confident in their superiority that they were willing to give their enemies time to plan. It was the kind of arrogance that came from absolute certainty, and it terrified Kexthar more than any weapon display could have. Captain Vasquez, he said, forcing his voice to remain steady, what do you want from us? Want? The human's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. Admiral, we want to understand. 50 years ago, Earth sent out 17 different distress calls. We begged for evacuation assistance. We offered to share our technology, our resources, our knowledge. We were desperate, dying, and willing to give anything for help. Do you remember your response? Kexthar's memory centers accessed the files. With crystal clarity, The human distress calls had been classified as low priority. Their offers of technological exchange deemed worthless by species that had already achieved interstellar civilization. The Syndicate had possessed faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and planetary-scale engineering. What could a species that had barely escaped their own gravity well possibly offer? We evaluated your requests according to standard protocols, he replied weakly. Standard protocols, Captain Vasquez repeated, her voice carrying a weight that spoke of years of accumulated pain. Dr. Chen, please share our analysis of those protocols with the Admiral. Dr. Chen's voice joined the conversation, clinical and precise. Admiral, we've had 50 years to study your standard protocols. They're quite fascinating from an anthropological perspective. A species requesting aid must demonstrate technological or resource value equivalent to the cost of assistance. In essence, a civilization must already be advanced enough to not need help in order to qualify for help. The logic, when stated so plainly, sounded as cruel as it was. The Syndicate's aid protocols were designed to help only those who were already strong enough to survive on their own. It was a system that perpetuated inequality while maintaining the illusion of benevolence. The protocols ensure efficient resource allocation, Kextar said, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. Efficient, Captain Vasquez echoed. Yes, I suppose it is efficient to let entire civilizations die rather than risk helping them become competitors. But you made an error in your calculations, Admiral. You assumed that a species facing extinction would simply accept that fate. On the tactical display, the human fleet began to move, not toward the Syndicate vessels, but into a formation that demonstrated their technological superiority with casual ease. The ships moved without visible propulsion, their hulls seeming to flow through space like living things. Energy readings suggested they were sharing power and information across the entire fleet, creating a network of interconnected vessels that functioned as a single organism. You see, Admiral, Dr. Chen continued, when faced with extinction. Most species have two choices: accept death with dignity or fight to survive, regardless of the cost. Humans chose a third option. Which was? Kextar asked, though he dreaded. The answer, we chose to evolve, Captain Vasquez said simply. When you abandoned us, we realized that the galaxy was governed by rules we didn't understand. So we disappeared. We took our population, our technology, and our dreams into the void between stars. We built habitats in the darkness where no sensors could find us. We had children and raised them with the knowledge that survival required. Transcendence. The implications were staggering. The humans hadn't just survived. They had transformed themselves into something beyond recognition. They had spent 50 years in self-imposed exile, using that time to advance their civilization. By centuries. The refugee ships, Kextar said, a horrible realization dawning. The ones we turned away weren't actually refugees, Captain Vasquez confirmed. They were scouts, measuring your responses, cataloging your weaknesses, determining whether you were worthy of the galaxy you claimed to govern. You failed that test, Admiral, spectacularly. The bridge erupted in alarmed chatter as officers realized the scope of human deception. For 50 years, they had been observed, analyzed, and found wanting by a species they believed extinct. Every tactical formation, every technological development, every strategic decision had been watched and catalogued by invisible eyes. Impossible, Kextar breathed. Our sensor networks cover 17 star systems. Nothing that large could hide from us, asterisk. Nothing using your understanding of physics, Dr. Chen agreed cheerfully. But we've learned to work with principles you haven't discovered yet. Would you like a demonstration of our technological advancement? Before anyone could respond, the Prometheus began to change. Its hull, which had appeared solid and unchanging, suddenly flowed like liquid metal. Weapon systems that had been concealed within its structure emerged with organic grace, each one targeting a different vessel in the Syndicate fleet. The ship had transformed from a vessel of exploration into an instrument of annihilation in seconds. Adaptive hull technology, Dr. Chen explained, her voice carrying the enthusiasm of a teacher with a fascinating subject. Our ships can reconfigure themselves based on mission requirements. The Prometheus you're seeing now is optimized for combat. Would you like to see the exploration, configuration, or perhaps the industrial model? The demonstration was more terrifying than any threat. The humans weren't just technologically superior. They were operating on principles that made the Syndicate's best science look like primitive superstition. You're trying to intimidate us, Kextar said, grasping for some measure of control. Admiral, Captain Vasquez's voice carried infinite patience. If we wanted to intimidate you, we would have simply destroyed your fleet and demanded surrender. What we're doing is far more dangerous. We're giving you the opportunity to understand exactly how far you've fallen behind. The communication channel fell silent for a moment, and in that silence, Kextar could hear the weight of 50 years of human advancement pressing down on everything he thought he knew about galactic civilization. The truth is, Admiral, Captain, Vasquez continued, we've moved beyond the need for intimidation. We've learned to work with forces you can't detect, manipulate matter at the quantum level, and travel through dimensions you haven't discovered. The fleet you're seeing represents approximately 3% of our current capabilities. 3%. The number hit Kextar like a physical blow. If the impossible vessels surrounding his fleet represented only a fraction of human capabilities, then the Syndicate's position as the dominant galactic power was not just threatened, was already over. What do you want from us? He asked again, his voice barely above a whisper. We want you to choose, Captain Vasquez said, her voice carrying the finality of judgment. 50 years ago, you chose to abandon us. Today, you get to choose whether the galaxy deserves our protection or our indifference. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The humans weren't offering conquest or surrender. They were offering a choice between being protected by a species they had betrayed or being ignored by powers they couldn't comprehend. And if we choose poorly, Kextar asked, then you'll learn what it means to face the universe without the strongest species in the galaxy watching your back, came the reply. Dr. Chen, please show the Admiral what we've discovered during our 50 years of exploration. The main view screen shifted, displaying star charts that made the Syndicate's maps look like ancient cave paintings. The human exploration had extended far beyond known space, revealing threats and opportunities that the Syndicate had never imagined. Ancient machine intelligences that consumed entire star systems, parasitic entities that fed on stellar energy, spacefaring creatures that treated planets like snacks. The galaxy is far more dangerous than you know, Dr. Chen explained. We've encountered 17 different threats that could sterilize entire sectors. We've been containing them, redirecting them, sometimes destroying them, all while you celebrated. Our extinction, the revelation, was overwhelming, while the Syndicate had grown comfortable in their assumed dominance. The humans had been fighting a secret war against cosmic horrors that threatened all life in the galaxy. You've been protecting us, Kextar said, the words falling from his mandibles like stones. We've been protecting everyone, Captain Vasquez corrected. Because despite your betrayal, despite your cruelty, despite your willingness to let us die, we remembered that we are all citizens of the same galaxy. We remembered that intelligence is precious, regardless of the form it takes. The communication channel fell silent again, and in that silence, Kextar felt the weight of 50 years of human sacrifice, 50 years of protection provided to species that had abandoned them in their hour of need. But our patience is not infinite, Captain Vasquez continued, her voice hardening. We've given you 50 years to prove yourselves worthy of the galaxy you claim to govern. The evidence suggests you've failed. The Syndicate has become complacent, cruel, and weak. You've confused dominance with leadership, fear with respect. The truth of it cut deeper than any weapon. The Syndicate had spent 50 years believing they were the pinnacle of galactic civilization, while the humans had spent that same time actually becoming something transcendent. We offer you a choice, Captain Vasquez said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who could reshape the galaxy with a thought. Accept humanity as your equals and partners in galactic governance, or face the universe alone. Choose wisely, Admiral. You will not get another opportunity. The communication channel closed, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dominion in stunned silence. The human fleet hung in space like a dark constellation, each vessel a testament to what could be achieved when determination met intelligence. When survival demanded transcendence, Kextar looked at his tactical display, at the impossible human fleet that had materialized from nowhere, and realized that the galaxy would never be the same. The age of Syndicate dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun, and they were offering partnership instead of conquest, protection instead of revenge. It was more mercy than the Syndicate had ever shown them, and it was the only choice that mattered. Asterisk.